This is the Lean Builders Hoots on the Ground podcast with absolutely, positively no bullshito. Join us as we dig into exactly what lean construction is and how we can use these concepts and strategies in the field. This podcast will be different as we journey to job sites and mine the minds of lean builders, all in effort to pass forward building knowledge from those who have put their time in to learn a better way. Because that's just what lean builders do. What's up, y'all? Adam Hoots here, the Lean Builder, Hoots on the Ground podcast with no bullshito. And this week, I've got a special treat for you as I introduce you to my lovely wife, Miss Brittany Hoots. Brittany and I recently did a presentation for the Lean Construction Blogs Lean in the Field Conference, and today you're going to get to hear it. We talk a lot about how to create, how to maintain, and measure trust on project sites, and so I'm really excited to introduce Brittany to y'all, as well as get some feedback on, have you tried using the Circle of Trust yet? How are you creating trust on your project sites? And are you being intentional about maintaining that trust? So I hope you enjoyed today's episode and would love some feedback, because that's just what lean builders do. We are here to talk a little bit about how to create, maintain, and you're getting a bonus today. We're also going to talk about how to measure trust. And I am super excited to be here. Disclaimer, I did bring my wife, but this is not going to be a lovey-dovey situation. Believe me, we're certainly not like that, huh? We do sometimes, but not here. We understand this is lean in the field, very much relevant. And so very quickly, we're going to do introductions, but this is the plan for our 30 minutes here. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about why trust is important on our jobs. We're going to discuss the fact that the construction industry has a serious issue with trust. We've got some trust issues going on right now, and I'm sure a lot of y'all would agree with that. And then we're going to run you through some ways to make trust, maintain trust, and then my favorite, how I've measured trust on project sites before. Without further ado, I'm sorry I waited so long. This is who the Hootses are. I'll let my wonderful wife, Brittany, who has taught me the most about trust more than anybody else, which is why I've asked her to be here. Maybe you can introduce yourself and our family in these pictures.
Okay, I'm Brittany Hoots. I'm his wife, and these are our kids. We have 15-year-old twin girls, and we have an 11-year-old son. They are all very involved. Oh, and we have Homer. How could I forget Homer? He's on the bottom there. He ate my Moe's queso today, so I can't forget him. And we talk about trust a lot, so he asked me to be here. This is not really my thing, so excuse me for that, but I will do my best.
That's amazing. A huge baseball family. In fact, I asked her to marry me at a Red Sox game, and she said yes. So
No, you asked me to marry you at a Rays game.
Rays Red Sox.
Rays are more important.
Quick question for you, Britt. Why is trust important? Why is that important?
I think trust is important because it makes you feel safe.
That's really nice. I guess from my perspective, I was really thinking about the people side of things, and trust is important because we expect folks to show up from two fronts, right? There's a predictive trust and a vulnerability trust. And so the predictive trust to me means, hey, you're going to show up when you say you're going to show up. And the vulnerability trust means you're going to show up in the way that you're going to show up, the way that I can expect you to. And both of those are huge, but really trust is centered around people, right? Why else? Anything else you want to add to that? No?
That's great.
So trust is super important, super relevant, and we're going to take you through some of the reasons that we're here today presenting with you. And so I'm going to make this statement again. The construction industry has a serious issue with trust. That's a big claim, and I mean it, and I stand by it. Owners don't trust architects. Architects don't trust contractors. It's almost like when you go to the mechanic and you got to get your car fixed. Do you trust everything on that estimate that the mechanic gave to you? So our industry has a big problem with trust. We have a serious issue. And what I mean by that is a few things. Again, one, our contracts, right? Our contracts are designed to pass risk. That's what we do. Like, owner passes risk to architect and or general contractor. And those two pass risks off to the different engineering discipline consultants, and the general contractor passes it off to the trade partner. And so all of those
discourage level of trust within an organization. I mean, contractors, from our perspective, we look at some jobs and heck, we're out 90 days before we get paid. So we're having to finance, right? We're having to be the bank for some of our owners. And that, we don't trust that. Again, architects, as they're trusting mechanical, structural, plumbing, all these engineers to get all their utilities and everything coordinated before they put them on the drawing. We know dang well out in the field what we get left with sometimes when people don't do that upfront coordination. Then you've got architects, right? And engineers, and they're all working on billable hours, and we know what that does. And we've got a system that is designed to discourage trust. And we really need to look at the things that we're doing within our system to make some changes so that we really respect and value people. A couple of my good friends here, Miss Jen Lacey and Mr. Jesus Hernandez, who you also know, have just written this book, Lean in Love. It's out there now. But it's exactly that. It's answering a lot of these issues that we face in the industry. And how do we bring trust, transparency, and vulnerability into the world? And I'm excited to say we are going to be reading that book here very soon. Britt? That's it. Yep. Bam. So why is all this important? This is a diagram from Patrick Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And we all know how important trust is on our project sites. Patrick Lencioni taught us in that book, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, that everything starts with a level of trust, that the entire foundation of everything we're doing from a team building perspective is built on trust. Once we have a firm foundation of trust, only then can we start to introduce healthy conflict. And then what healthy conflict does is that enables us to start making commitments to one another, to which we can hold each other accountable for results. So as we go through the different stages of team building, we realize and understand just how critical trust is, and how a little bit of that upfront work in the beginning to develop and establish that trust, which is uncomfortable, that goes a long way in the end of the job when things are hectic and you know who you can count on and you make those phone calls. And again, so it's a little bit of that front end planning, lean construction. The more effort and energy that we put up front, the easier things are in the long run. Again, Britt, you've taught me the most about trust in my life through our experiences together. I'd love you to just run us through, because this concept can be generic, right? Maybe you can run us through some of the different ways we make trust.
Those bullet points.
Anything that sticks out to you. Yeah, don't read them, they can read.
I think being vulnerable,
how do you get vulnerable?
Being open, listening, more than talking, being open to others' feelings, being respectful. And I think identifying similarities. When you wrote this and I read that, I was like, that's really cool, because I think that does establish some trust when you hear somebody say something and you can identify with that and say, oh, I do that too. It makes you feel more connected, which establishes trust.
Yeah, I think being intentional about building trust is huge as well. And being able to talk about that concept and what does that mean? Establishing those boundaries is super important. This is one that Jesse taught me. Your do to say ratio, your say to do ratio. How accurate are you with what you do to what you say? I also think being uncomfortable together, that can be one that really just builds a bond. Like even this right now, we're a little bit uncomfortable.
I'm definitely uncomfortable. I don't like this.
But you trust me enough to be sitting in that seat to know that I'm going to help guide this and not put you in too many uncomfortable situations, but we're building trust here together in real time, making this happen. How about communication? What are your thoughts on communication?
Yeah, it's a two-way street. That's being transparent, like you have on there. And I think that's so important, definitely.
So when I think about communication, all of these things here really help me. If I start raising my voice and like getting up, and does that make you want to trust me? No, no, not at all. Or what if I just sat here and didn't say a word?
Right. Yeah, I don't trust you. You're too quiet.
What if I over communicated and kept on talking to you and just didn't let you get a one word in? I mean,
I'd make me feel uncomfortable, and definitely.
Yeah. So I mean, having empathy for others as you communicate to them. We got to have this understanding that the way we talk, the words that we use, like all of these are crafting and massaging the level of trust within your relationship. Not having the solution all the time. This is something that I struggle with, right? She'll come home and want to talk and be talking, and I'll just be like, why didn't you just do this? Right? Or why didn't you just do that? Or you're like, just you listen? I mean,
Let me finish.
common statement here for sure. But asking open-ended, inquisitive questions, right? Not trying to lead the witness, as some say. And I'll tell you, this is an interesting, as I was preparing for this, I don't even think we've talked about this. There was a gentleman named John Gottman, Dr. Gottman, who did a marriage study, and he could predict whether a couple would either be successful together or get a divorce within 5 minutes of meeting them with an 85% accuracy rate. Did you know that?
I think you told me that one time.
That's unbelievable. And what he said as a result of the study that he did is they realized that it took 5 positives to outweigh 1 negative. And so if I came home and belittled you or made a rude statement to you, it would take me 5 times of, hey, here's some flowers, you look beautiful, like 5 positive events to outweigh 1 negative event. And on average, the marriages that were successful had a 5-to-1 ratio. The ones that were not successful had a 0.8-to-1 ratio. I found that to be very interesting. So when we're out there communicating with our trade partners, again, maybe they're not our marriage partners, but we do spend a lot of time with them, sometimes more than our marriage partners. Think about the way you're communicating with those folks and the impact that's having on the trust that you're building or demolishing. So
Can I say one more?
please.
I think something important that came up in my mind is that communicating and establishing trust. I think that if I were to tell somebody, oh, I'm going to be there at 5, I'm going to be there at 5, and then something comes up and I can't be there at 5, and I call them at 4:55 and I say, hey, I can't be there at 5 because of whatever, that is establishing trust, because it's me acknowledging that they are trusting that I will be there and giving them a heads up that I won't. So I just
really good
was thinking
example.
about,
Yeah. It's a really good example of, hey, I can't meet my commitment. I'm not just going to not meet it. I'm going to give you the heads up. So
I'll acknowledge that
yeah.
I want you to trust.
Yeah, maybe you're relying on me to do something for you or something along those lines. That's beautiful. Thank you. How about maintaining trust? When we think about maintaining trust, and that's just as important as creating it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I told you that I think the thing that is most important on this list is being consistent. And I think that stands out the most.
I like that. Tell me more. What do you mean being consistent? What does that mean?
Doing the same thing over and over so that you know that when they tell you they're going to do something, they're going to do it. Or if they tell you they're going to be at a certain place at a certain time, they're going to be there for you.
Yeah, show up the same way. Show up when you say you're going to be there.
Communicate constantly.
Absolutely. Giving and receiving feedback is another one that's super challenging, right? Like it is hard to give feedback to someone without compliment sandwiching them. It's also hard to receive feedback. And so some quick advice, if somebody ever tries to give you feedback, the only applicable response for that is thank you, because that just tells them that you value their opinion and you're not trying to throw something back in there. It's thank you. Thank you for that. How about admitting when you're wrong? How does that equal maintaining trust?
I think that goes along with just holding accountability and saying, hey, I told you I'd be there and I can't.
The transparency side of things. Absolutely. And this last one, long-term thinking is so important, right? I'm not thinking about today. I'm not thinking about next week. I'm thinking about 10 years from now. I'm thinking about 20 years from now, not getting the short mindset frame. This is getting into a little bit of a sticky situation, and I know I trust.
I have a commitment that I told my daughter I would be there, so I have to go. But
yeah. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah,
again.
This was not planned for me to leave, and
thank
furthermore, that
I appreciate it.
Yes,
Yep.
Good luck.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Yes, thank you so much.
I appreciate y'all letting that go down because, again, I have learned just a ton about trust from my wife. And again, we were on the fence. Do I do it? Do I not do it? And I said, you know what? She's got probably way more to add than I do. So let's bring her on here. And I'm glad she left. So now we can talk about measuring trust. I don't want her to measure how much she trusts me right now. But when we really talk about this, I've got a few really great ways that you can introduce trust and how to measure trust on your project sites. So everything we were just talking about, very generic, very applicable to pretty much any relationship that you have. I'm going to start getting a little bit more specific into construction and how I've used these tools in order to drive a more successful project. And so One of the ones I love the most is the trust circle. And I will get to that in just a minute and how much this bad boy made a difference on our project site. Team health assessments. I know some of you are probably already doing that. Another one, continuous feedback, right? Are you able to, at the end of a meeting, do a quick, hey, what added value, what didn't add value? And stop doing what didn't add value. Do more of what added value, right? It's system adjustments like that. What are we going to start, stop, and continue to really get better? And then the other thing that I love measuring on a job site is asking superintendents questions about the foreman, about the workers. And so learning doesn't always have to be technical. We work in a very technically complex environment. When I go out and I walk the job site, yes, I'm learning about the mechanical systems. And yes, I'm understanding the electrical systems, how they're working together or not working together. And what walls need to be framed before I can put electrical panels or control, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing I'm learning is, what is the contractor who installs the drywalls lead person on the project? What is their name? Do they have children? Do they have a wife? These are all ways that I'm building relationships with people, and I'm learning. It's just not technical. I really encourage everybody out there to get out in the field, shake a hand, and really do some non-technical learning, because it will benefit your job in the long run. So let's talk about this trust circle, because this was a ton of fun. We were on a job here in a big automotive manufacturer here in Spartanburg, South Carolina. I'll leave you to guess who that might be, but it was a SEMA at Risk project. We were about a quarter of the way through the job, and man, we just couldn't keep a job site clean, and it was driving us nuts. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to do a little old kindergarten tool. I'm just going to draw a circle. And some of you may have seen the movie Meet the Fockers, where they talk about you're either in my circle or you're out of my circle. That is definitely where we ripped this off from. And so I drew the circle, I put a dot in the middle of the circle, and I said, that is Brittany. Brittany is the person that I trust the most in this world with everything that I have. And then we proceeded in the staff meeting to go around and talk about each one of our trade partners and how they were performing. And we came up with this circle, and I was the mediator of going in and out. And we called it the trusted trade title, right? And so what we ended up doing, I'll explain the process later, but this was a way of communicating feedback. And you can see the people who are outside the circle, SED, who will be unnamed for obvious reasons, but they would not work on Saturday to facilitate overtime. Bojangles cups left at their work site. We found a worker sleeping in the truck. Like, these type of things were unacceptable on our job. And it was our way of communicating the expectation. And believe it or not, I ended up actually getting daily reports from people. And they would say right on their daily report, what do I have to do to get back in your circle of trust? What do I have to do to get you to trust me again? And so I think it's fascinating that it's such a tool that almost looks like a kindergarten tool. It's literally costs zero money. Everybody's got a whiteboard. Everybody's got a dry erase marker, and you got trade partners. So here's the quick process, right? Sit around in your staff meeting, and we've had some projects do this way more scientifically than others. Some people break it down on a 1 to 10 scale, and they rate on safety and RFIs and submittals and are my change orders bogus? Is the job site clean? Like, you can do it in a scientific method. I never did it that way. It was always artsy fartsy for me, where I would put it in a staff meeting. I would say, okay, we're going to spend the next 10 minutes talking about each trade partner's performance. And we would always start the conversation with, is this company, right, inside or outside our circle of trust? Do we trust this organization? And I would toss it out of the company, and the superintendent would be like, oh, that dang guy doesn't ever show up to work, or he shows up to 9 and then wants to work till 7, and I'm not doing that. And then I'm like, their office has got it together. They give me RFIs on time, legitimate. They look at their drawings first. All their submittals are on point. Their invoices are never over. And the safety guy's like, yeah, they do a pretty good job in safety. And then the project engineer chimes in and says, I've got 12 quality control reports that they won't address. And so we were able to say, okay, we trust them. How close are they to our most trusted piece? And then I would artsy fartsy again, oh, right there. And okay, are we all in agreement? Yeah, we're in agreement. And boom, there it is. And then this is a quick explanation of why you're there. So we would have that discussion, that dialogue in the staff meeting, where everybody felt enabled, empowered to speak up and talk a little bit about it. And then we would document that on the circle. And that circle was in the main conference room for everybody to see. The owner, the architects, the trade partner, all their PMs, everybody could see that. And then at the end of the week, we would wait until we got the safety meeting when we had all hands on deck and we were able to acknowledge people. And you can see a couple of them here, right? Where we would get around the circle and we would say, okay, here you go. You won the trusted trade title. And it became a thing, man. Look how proud some of these guys are, like holding this up. And it was exciting, right? Like people got hyped up, jazzed up about winning the trusted trade title. And so I go back to the process, right? So we had the dialogue. We really understood one another. We documented it on our circle on the whiteboard. We would award the trusted trade title. We would do that once a week, right? We would talk about it at our staff meeting, award it on the Monday safety, all hands meeting. And then we would reward the award. So at the end of 4 weeks, right, monthly, we would buy hamburgers and hot dogs. We would pull a fire permit from said automobile manufacturing. We would cook. It would be myself, the lead PM, and the lead superintendent would all cook for the trade partners who won the award the 4 weeks prior. And that was a huge step in developing a trust and respect and being able to have some really good communication and dialogue with our workers. These are the leaders on the project site that are actually laboring for the workers doing the job. And so I think that just had a whole nother feel to it and was rewarding in itself. And that was our celebration. And then we just repeated that on the monthly basis. And I'll tell you, again, when you start to look at some of these teams, this is definitely one of my favorite projects as I can remember. This was SEDD as we started to communicate with them exactly our expectations. It took them 2 or 3 weeks, but they ended up winning the award. These are some of our electricians with the award. And this is again is one of our celebrations where you could see even everything we did on that project had flow, right? So you would get your plate, you'd come down here, you'd get your burgers, and then you'd come down here and sit down. And so again, trust is one of the most, if not the most important concept that we use on our projects. And I'll tell you, a lot of times when I have failed in lean construction, when I have failed applying the last planner system, or I have failed in a daily huddle, it's because I often dive straight into the point. I get right to the point and I don't allow myself to build a level of trust with the person and be able to communicate back and forth and, hey, how are you? And then do that second part that I just did. I listen for the answer, right? Like Brittany said it best, listening. When I can listen, then the other person knows that I hear them. And then I'm able to find that next question and what they're saying. And there's always a next question. If you're listening with the intention to understand and not respond, and I believe that's Stephen Covey 7 Habits reference, but think about that. When I listen to understand, somebody feels important. Somebody starts to build a level of trust with me that's going to take me a long way. As we start to sum it up here, again, I very much value and appreciate the opportunity to have this presentation with my wife, the center of my trust circle. I'm really excited to introduce this concept. I've even got hopes and dreams of an app one day that maybe you can use. I'm super excited for that. That's the takeaways from this. I really want folks to come together and agree that, hey, we have a problem in the industry, right? We are looked at like mechanics, right? When an owner comes to us to purchase projects, there's always this level of distrust. There's always this level of let me hit the exclusions and really see what's not there versus having a level of trust that is granted, like straight up ahead of time. Before, as I walk into this, I'm just walking in with trust. And some might say I'm a little naive, and some might say you've got to earn my trust, and that's great. But that sounds like it's going to take a long, long time. If you're going to earn somebody's trust, it's going to take forever. You got to walk into situations and trust humanity, that people are just good people and that people just want to add good to the world. And you know what? You're going to get taken advantage of. And some people, again, might say it's heavy. Maybe they're saying I'm stupid, but I'm walking into a situation with trust. I'm walking into a situation with love and affection for another human being. I think those are 3 or 4 words that have not been used in construction enough. The word love, the word care, and the word compassion. And when we can really take those three things and apply them to the way that we're communicating with folks, then we're building trust. So again, join me. Let's identify that we have a problem, right? Now let's use some of those ways that we talked about that Brittany introduced to us to make trust. Like, we've got to make trust on our job sites. We've got to make trust with the people doing the work. We have to enable and empower them, and we've got to maintain that trust, right? This isn't like just a, hey, let's go make trust and then it's all over. Okay, see ya. We'll see you tomorrow. No, this is I'm going to make trust and I'm going to craft trust. And then I'm going to continue to bake that trust, right? So I've got the ingredients in there, but it's a continual process. And I've got to add ingredients and I've got to take ingredients away as I start to measure that trust. And so I encourage you to really measure your trust on your job sites. If you haven't gotten past the trust side, how have you gotten to the healthy conflict? If you don't have a level of trust on your job, there's probably some people that are withholding ideas that could save you money, save you time, save you effort and energy. And so I'll remind you, this is a process that doesn't end. That song, this is a song that doesn't end. That's this process. You're continually building trust. You're continually having to invest into people. And in the long run, it pays off. So I'll remind you one last time, be intentional about trusting other people. And yes, you can earn trust and you can take away from that trust. But we've got to start from some type of trusting position in order to allow people to be in control of their trust. So again, with that, I thank you very much.